What is going on, everybody? My name is Conor Lawler. Welcome back to another week of Hero or Zero here on the Heroes for Hire podcast. I am not joined, as always, by my best pal, Mr. Shaun Mean. He is still away this week, unfortunately. So it's a bit of a strange week. Unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with me just all on my lonesome. And so what normally happens is, because Shaun is gone away, he's gone off to Japan. He doesn't like us anymore. He specifically said that to me about you guys before he left. It was actually in a very vicious rant. I don't want to share it. It's not good. So because he's gone away, I am going to be doing my own Hero Zero here. And if you don't know, Hero Zero is the show where we choose one comic book character every single week. We talk their good points and their bad points, and we generally just give you a bit of a rundown of everything to do with that character. Normally, I always do DC characters. Shaun always does Marvel characters, but of course, Shaun's not here. Look, I'm not holding grudges, but technically it is my week, but next week it's still going to be my week, which is a bit of a hindrance. You've probably noticed we've had Weird News Classics going up the last 2 weeks. I hope they are going down well. They're just some of our, basically our best of our episodes that were kind of sent into us, that people said these are our favourite Weird News episodes, so we thought it'd be fun. Re-release them after a few years, see if they still hold up. Are we still amusing? Probably not. But this week, what I decided to do, as what I always do when Shaun is away, I go back to where I know. Because you can do a new report when the other person isn't here, but it's not really as fun because half the fun is we all find out together. So this is a report from a character that we did on episode 10. The episode no longer exists, all the way back. I think it was Christmas 2018 was when we did a report on this character. Have not touched it since. You will not be able to find that episode on Spotify, on iTunes, anything like that. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of cover the character again and just kind of share the love. You've probably seen in the headline, we are doing Mr. Freeze this week. It's going to be really interesting because I kind of come at Mr. Freeze from the animated series perspective. I think that's where a lot of people know him from, and that's where a lot of his inspiration comes from. But as someone who was obsessed and I still love the Batman the Animated Series, it's the reason why I'm into comic books. That was kind of my first exposure to the character, and little did I know that was the reason why he became so popular, was because of that show. We will be talking all about that stuff. If this is your second episode, could you give us a like and subscribe, or a follow, or I don't know how it works, a rating, a 5-star review on Spotify would really, really help us out. We are going for 100 5-star reviews before Christmas. I keep messing that up and saying 100 5-star review. No, wait. 5 100-star reviews is what I'm after saying multiple times on the show. So I'm very careful to get it right this week, because people, and look, you know who you are taking the piss out of me in the fucking comments on Spotify. Because there's a Q&A thing at the bottom of Spotify, so if you have any questions or any comments you'd like to make, just make them there. Maybe mention a character you'd like me to cover next week. I'm not too sure. But yes, it's time to get into it. Remember, I nearly did it again. 100 5-star reviews on Spotify. So if you haven't given us that, please, it would really really help us out. It's to pay for Shaun's flight home. Otherwise, he's stuck there forever. So we are going to be doing a man known as Victor Freeze, or Victor Fries, if you want to go by the actual spelling. He was created back in the day. So in 1957, his first appearance is in a comic book called Black Hawk 117. And this is in 1957. This is before he even appears in Batman comic books. This is 2 years before he appears in any Batman comic books. And the issue is actually titled The Fantastic Mr. Freeze. It says he was created by Bob Kane and Sheldon Moldoff and Dave Wood. The last two creators are uncredited, which would basically tell you, if you know anything about Bob Kane, Sheldon Moldoff and Dave Wood created Mr. Freeze. Good job, guys. Bob job well done for being around and taking that paycheck. But yes, so his first appearance was all the way back then. He was basically just a random dude with a freeze gun. That's kind of it. And you can kind of see why that's a bit boring. I mean, he was just walking around and he had a freeze gun, and that was it. That was his whole character. And within the comic books themselves, he kind of was a bit of a, I don't know, like the Condiment King, or like just a low-level villain that nobody really gave a shit about, because who cares? And he was like a villain of the week kind of vibe. And this all changed, however, when Batman the Animated Series came out, because the guys working over there, they are probably the biggest reason. Look, people say Tim Burton and all that, but I think the animated series itself and everyone who worked on that show is, I would say, a massive, massive reason why so many people like Batman now. Because that show and the animated Spider-Man show in the 90s, they are like so culturally the animated X-Men show, of course, as well. Like, I put those three together and you're like, these are why these characters nowadays, people just remember them. They love them. Like, the comic books were big for people in the 70s and 80s, but for people who grew up in the 90s, that is the driving force, I think, behind a lot of the Marvel stuff that we've seen in the last 15 years as well. Because all those people who grew up in the 90s all became 30-year-olds, and then suddenly, we would like to do the same stuff. So, Victor Fries, he is a little bit different from every other villain of the Batman villains, in the fact that he's not really, he's not just about evil. Like, that's not his thing. He doesn't really want to just commit crimes for the sake of committing crimes. He's not a Joker who's just going to kill a bunch of people for a laugh. He has a goal. He has something in mind that he wants to do, and the issue is Batman keeps trying to stop him, because he's like, lad, you can't do that. And bit of a spoil sport is the Batman. So he obviously gets mad when people stand in the way of what he's trying to accomplish, which is mostly saving his wife, who is dying. You've also seen Mr. Freeze in the movie Batman and Robin from 1997. The greatest Batman, obviously, thing ever. I mean, what a movie. It's a powerful movie. We all remember it well. He says a lot of puns. He's played by Arnie. And he says, "Ice to meet you, Batman. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age," which factually is not true. But look, it works well because Arnie says it with such gusto that you just kind of have to roll your eyes and go with it. So he was introduced to his newfound format is introduced in the episode of the Batman the Animated Series known as Heart of Ice. And what they wanted to do was they basically wanted to rewrite his whole character. They wanted to take the character that was just a man with a freeze gun, and they gave him depth. They gave him a backstory. And the episode was so good that it won an Emmy for outstanding writing in an animated program. That is how the level of talent that they had when putting that episode together. So Freeze, the show starts off with Freeze leaving a band of henchmen on several raids of Gothcorp. And it's not until later on that you figure out the backstory. And the backstory itself is, why is he committing these crimes? There's a man dressed in an ice suit. Batman's like, what's up with that? And it's then in the episode that the tragic origin is revealed and the layers are added, because his wife Nora is added into it. So Victor Fries was a talented scientist with a horrible past. He had a violent father and no friends that married the love of his life, Nora Fries. He's absolutely delighted. Nora, though, is diagnosed with a rare terminal illness. And Victor's life begins to spiral downhill, basically immediately. So Nora is dying, and he's this really incredible scientist, and he needs to save her life. And he works in cryogenics. So so that's kind of his thing. And he's like, there has to be something I can do. He begins to work at a large corporate company run by a man called Ferris Boyle, who's not a very nice man. And he basically begins work there because Ferris Boyle has like cryostasis, and he works in cryogenetics and all that stuff as well. And so that's why he joins that company, to make some money and to also then start using the equipment that's there. And in order to save Nora, he actually begins to steal equipment from the company he's working for because he wants to place her in cryostasis, which is basically just he wants to freeze her in time. And the reason for that is because he's like, I can't come up with a cure right now, but if you give me some time, I'm smart enough that I can figure something out. And it's this like really tragic moment where he's not a bad guy. He's just like, I'm stealing them to put my wife in cryostasis so that I can come up with a cure for her incurable disease. Ferris Boyle, however, does not see it like that. He just sees it as scientists are stealing my equipment and swindling money out of him. So when Ferris finds out, he and some of his goons try to kill Freeze in the cryo lab. They turn up, and this results in an accident changing Freeze. So there's like a moment with a gun, there's a massive chamber of like sub-zero cryogenics and all, just science stuff, beakers, Bunsen burners, you know the whole gist. But there's a big fight, and eventually Freeze gets covered in a lot of stuff, frozen, and he basically has to live in sub-zero temperatures. It changes his like molecular level so that he can only live in sub-zero temperatures. And to counter this, Freeze builds himself a cryo suit to keep his body temperature below zero at all times. And it's because of this, like he just literally, he can survive, but he's mutated. And he's now horrifying to look at, but he still has that one goal. And so he's now robbing all the GotCorp equipment, not because he wants to sell it on the black market or because he wants to do anything terrible with it. He just, no matter what way he's got that suit to save himself. He's just looking to save Nora. He's stealing everything to try to save Nora. And Batman's kind of getting in his way, being like, you can't steal that stuff. And you can understand why he's like, fuck off, mate. I've got a bigger plan for this, rather than your, oh no, I shouldn't steal. So him and Batman begin fighting in the episode itself. And it's a really sad moment, right? So Batman does have sympathy for Freeze, especially after like Batman he goes back and checks the tapes and he witnesses the accident that spawned Freeze. He even tries to reason with him, but he's unsuccessful. As Mr. Freeze, he can't be reached at that point. Like he says his emotions are frozen dead. But this is like disproven, because at the end of the episode he gets remanded in Arkham Asylum, and there's a really, really like beautiful moment where at the end of the episode he's in Arkham Asylum and he realizes like he can't keep trying to save Nora. Like he's locked up now and she's still out there just in cryostasis. And he's like being this really cold person all episode. And this is the first time you see him. And he's in his cell, he's imprisoned, and he's crying. And he's crying because he failed in his mission to avenge Nora. And he ends the episode with a quote, "I can only beg your forgiveness and pray you hear me somehow, someplace where a warm hand waits for mine." And I mean, no wonder it won the Emmy. It's such a cool concept to take a character that nobody cares about and just add like this tragic story that like makes so much sense as to why they're actually acting that way. And moving on, that was kind of the nucleus for the whole character redesign, because the comic books then seen what had happened, it won an Emmy, and it just changed Freeze's whole backstory on a whim, went straight to that backstory. This is what happens in the animated show, this is what is happening in the comic books. And I really like when that happens, when something is that cool. Batman the Animated Series did it for multiple things. I mean, Harley Quinn didn't exist until she was on that show. that show has such a knock-on effect to comic books now. He later appears in a different episode known as Deep Freeze, where he's sprung out of prison, basically against his will, and is taken to an offshore city. Basically, the old he's brought to a city because of a man called Grant Walker. And the man created a new suit for Freeze, and he gave him a new freeze gun, and he breaks him out of prison. And he's like, Freeze is obviously thinking, okay, this is a bit weird. Why you doing all this stuff for me? And he says, I'm fascinated with you. Like, he needs his technology to condition his body in order to become like Freeze. And he wants Freeze out to help him, because his plan is he wants to do a global deep freeze to create a new world for his selected residents. And I mean, like, so Freeze is like, wait, okay, so instead of just like saving one person, you want to just wipe out everyone, like bring in a new ice age, wipe out everyone, and you thought I was the perfect man for it. Freeze rejects this at first. He's like, I'm not helping you. But Walker then shows Freeze that Nora is still alive, but was still cryogenically frozen. And then he says, I could help you save her. Like, she'll come with us. And at that point, Freeze is it. Not because he wants to help Walker, but because he's like, if Walker has Nora, then I'm kind of stuck here. Yeah, I will help you. And Batman and Robin show up, and they don't just fight. They just tell Freeze that, like, if you help Walker, Freeze, Gotham, and all the rest of the world, Nora would hate you. Like, she would turn on you. And Freeze sees the light, and he's like, yeah, you're completely right. Like, he says that he's going to bring her with us, but, like, she would hate that. Especially about the man that he's become. And he helps Batman and Robin stop Walker at the last minute. And there's this great moment where, like, Nora's body is there, and the place that they're in is called Oceania, and the power core is going to blow the city to pieces. And it's this moment where Freeze is there with Nora's body, and Batman and Robin are like, we need to get out of here, the place is going to blow. And Freeze says, I am not leaving without Nora. And Freeze, Nora, and Walker all explode in the explosion. They are then revealed later on that they all survive, obviously, but that's his 2 episodes are his introduction episode, and the next episode is him, like, fighting against the bad guy, and then being like, Batman's like, we need to get out of here. He's like, I'm not leaving. Why would I leave? Everything I have is here, and Nora's here. I'd rather die with Nora than leave without her. Which is obviously part of, like, a great character arc for him. He also has, if anyone hasn't seen it, there is an animated movie called Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, in which there's a whole other thing where he finds out that Barbara Gordon is a perfect matching daughter for Nora, and so he kidnaps Barbara Gordon, not knowing that she's Batgirl. And Batman and Robin obviously intervene, and there's a whole moment where, like, they have to kind of talk him out of doing this, that, like, this is not the right way to go about this. And he basically realizes that, like, it's not really great technology that he's using, that, like, I think they're out in the middle of, like, an oil rig somewhere, and Batman and Robin are like, and obviously the place is all exploding again. And however, what happens is he's about to blow up at the end, and the oil rig is about to go, and he tells Batman, and take Nora with you. Like, if you are going, take her with you, because she's obviously on the oil rig. And Batman's like, well, she's frozen. Like, what could I do? He's like, no, I'm gonna die. Take her with me. So there's 2 different moments where he's like, I'd rather stay with her. And then the second time he's like, Batman, take her with you. If you can get out of here, take her. And so the place goes up, and the end of the movie is so good, because what happens is Freeze falls into the sea after the explosion. It's revealed that, like, later on he obviously survives, because of course he does. And the last shot of the movie is like him in the middle of the snow in this like scientific post in the middle of the Arctic, where like all these scientists are in this hut, and he's looking in through the window, and he catches the news on the television that Nora has survived and made a full recovery with the help and research of Wayne Enterprises. So Bruce did save her, and he brought her back. He used all of his technology, and he brings her back like from the dead, heals her from her illness. And with tears of happiness in his eyes, Freeze limps away into the blizzard, and that's how the movie ends. And like, just such a great character, just in general. Like, he's just such a interesting character and so well rounded in that he never strays from what he actually is about. Like, there's never a moment where he just starts killing people for the sake of killing people. Especially in the animated show. In comic books, I mean, there's probably one or two stories, but like in animated wise, he's fairly consistent in that he only wants one thing, and he will just literally, he'll kill himself. He doesn't care. But that he's in love with her, and he wants to save her. There's one episode I did want to talk about other than all that. So they're kind of a lot of the main episodes that he was in the main series. But possibly I was going to say the best, but one of the best stories involving Mr. Freeze was actually in Batman Beyond, which is an animated show that came after the animated series. And there's an episode called Meltdown, and I've touched on it on the show several times, but for anyone who doesn't know, Freeze is basically still alive. I think Batman Beyond is set like 40 years after the animated series, maybe 50. And so Bruce Wayne's obviously like 80 something. Terry is the new Batman, and Freeze is still alive, but he's just a head, right? And he's in storage at a facility. He's kept alive at Wayne Enterprise, or Wayne Powers Enterprises at this point. And he's just frozen. Ironically, he's in cryostasis kind of. Derek Powers, who is the big bad of Batman Beyond, he is looking for a cure he's got a mutation himself, and he's like looking for cures of how to heal himself. And he figures out, well, we've got a few things that we have, like, there's like a lot of different ideas and experiments that we're working on of how we can save your body and like change your mutation and get you back to normal. And his plan is, well, we have lots of experiments. Let's not experiment on me, because what if like it harms me? We'll just experiment on someone nobody gives a shit about. So they get Mr. Freeze out of stasis, and they give him like all of these promises, and it's like this really heartbreaking thing where he comes back to life, and they tell him, we can cure you. Like, they don't tell him that it's an experiment or that this is the first time they've tried it. They're just like, we can cure you, Mr. Freeze. You're going to come back to yourself, and oh my God, it's going to be amazing. And obviously Freeze is like delighted about this. He's like, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to be a test subject for whatever you're doing. And so they transfer his consciousness into a new body. That this is part of the test subject that's going on, and he's basically thrilled. Like, he decides to turn over a new leaf. Bruce is like 85 at this stage, and he's like super suspicious that like Mr. Freeze is going to do some bad shit. But Terry follows Mr. Freeze all around Gotham, and he's like doing really nice stuff, and he's not trying to harm anyone, and he goes to Nora's grave and he just like lays down flowers. And there's a man there who's like, you killed my parents in like an accident in like 50 years ago, or like my grandparents. And he's like hounding him. And Mr. Freeze is like, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm not that person anymore. Like, I can only try and make it up to you now. And Terry has to kind of intervene. And Batman, I should say, has to kind of intervene and just be like, look, he's not that guy. Like, he's trying to turn over a new leaf. However, of course, Mr. Freeze can never be happy. You think everything's going well, but it's not, because the test subject, it doesn't work. And it takes about 2 days before he relapses. And his newfound life is basically cut short in that he just starts to feel really warm. Like, and it's snowing. Like, he's in the middle of like a Gotham like in December, and it's like freezing, and he's like, I feel so warm, and he's in normal clothes, And it's at that point they figure out that his whole body is reverting back to like its original state of like he has to be in sub-zero temperatures to survive. And Freeze is obviously not too happy because he was like, you told me this was permanent. And then they tell him, actually, no, you were just a test subject. We don't really give a shit about you. And they like lock him up. Victor he's not a big fan of this, so he decides, I'm going to go get my old suit and fuck up Derek Powers and the whole of this building. I'm going to take it all down. So him and Derek Powers are like having this big titanic struggle between the two of them. And Mr. Freeze just is like, he does not give a shit. He's going around trying to kill anyone because he's like had his life. They promised him life and then they took it straight back away and proved that they didn't really give a shit about them. He begins to destroy the facility, and Derek Powers comes back and like, if basically, it's hard to introduce this at this point, but Derek Powers is like radiation. He just like has the power, he can fire radiation. So he like, that's his mutation. So he like fires it at Freeze. Freeze is dying. And he gets rid of Derek Powers at the last minute, but Freeze is like, his suit is damaged and he's on his last legs. The building is coming down around them, and Batman is like, you gotta get out of here. We gotta get out of here, Victor. Like, you can still do good. And Victor just looks at him and he's like, believe me, you're the only one who cares. And then he seals himself off and just like allows the building to kill him. Because he's like, I'd rather be dead than be this person who I am right now without Nora. Like, Nora isn't even alive anymore. What is the point? And that is how his story in the animated series ends. And I think, like, from start to finish, introducing as a character who's this really like heartless character, doesn't really speak, isn't emotional, and ends with, look, believe me, you're the only one who cares, and is willing like to just finish himself off rather than live in that pain anymore. Like, nobody likes him. And so in terms of powers and abilities, he's got a unique physiology. He's got some, he became drenched in cryochemicals, and his body chemistry was altered to decrease in body temperature. He's got self-sustenance, so he's immune to frostbite and other cold-related illnesses. He has decelerated aging, which is why he looks the same in Terry McGinnis's time as he did in Bruce Wayne's time. Toxic immunity. In terms of abilities, he's a genius. He's a genius level intellect, who studied many areas of physics and chemistry as well as neurobiology and medicine. He's a gifted scientist. He builds his own cryo suit, his cold gun. He even built a life support for Selena Kyle at one stage. Cryogenics, mechanical engineering. So apparently, according to Mr. Terrific, who's like top 10 smartest people in DC, the technology created by Mr. Freeze is as technologically advanced as that of Lex Luthor. That is the level of like intelligence that we're talking here. His weaknesses are obviously vulnerability to heat and technological reliability. So if you can fuck up the suit or you hit him with some heat, he's kind of wasted at that point. And lastly, I just want to touch on Batman Arkham City, the video game, which has the best boss fight in the whole game is when you fight Mr. Freeze, in that it's the only boss fight in which, if you come up with a tactic, so if you drop from the ceiling, or if you come up from the grates, or if you hide behind something and jump out and punch him, he then freezes that area, so you can't get him in the same way twice. And that's just a cool game mechanic that involves Mr. Freeze, and he's the perfect character for it because he's so intelligent. That is my report on Mr. Freeze, a character I absolutely adore. One of the best villains in all of comic books, who's not really a villain. He's one of the best characters, I would say, all around in comic books, I think. And certainly one of the reasons why Batman's Rogues Gallery is so strong. If you enjoyed the episode, we have hundreds of other episodes covering lots of different characters, not just Batman characters, but like Lots of DC, lots of Marvel characters, hundreds at this stage. We also have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/Heroes for Hire podcast. You can go over there and we have loads of movie reviews, TV show reviews, and loads of extra content. We did put up a Q&A up there last month. Morbius was last month's movie, if you want to go listen to our review of that. Jared is a great actor and we love him, said Shaun. That's a quote from Shaun directly, and he's not here to disagree with me. We also have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and once again, 100 5-star reviews on Spotify. That would be really, really, really great. But yeah, so I have been Conor Lawler. Thank you all very much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week with another episode of Hero Zero. And just tell what human being that we exist, please. Bye for now.